It's Troy, back with another update about the famous Tseuquest game. So, what have I got for you this time? I'm going to put my glasses on. Well, you may have heard of news of people receiving their games over the last few months in Spain, and perhaps even seen some posts about it being in stores. You might have also heard some really negative stories from different people that it's all a scam and so on, and also that the company's gone to court, and that no one's going to see another game. And what I want to do is, because there has been a new update, a new news update in the Spanish Tseuquest website. So I'm going to cover that. But what I wanted to do was I want to give a little background, because when people say, you know, this game was started a long time ago as far as the Kickstarter campaign. So we're getting into 11, 12 years since that started. And some people say nothing's happened. So I haven't been around the whole scene the entire time. I've got myself, by the way, a cup of tea tonight rather than a bourbon or a scotch. So bit of chamomile. So anyway, what I want to do is just go through some of the history that I know about, and I certainly don't know it all. Some people will know way more than I do, but I want to go through a bit of that history and just give you a bit of a background as to what happened when, and what's been happening now, even though it might seem that very little has been happening. So let's take a little stroll down memory lane and get things kicked off. So first of all, about Game Zone Miniatures themselves. So Game Zone Miniatures, according to an article that I've got here, started as a geek shop before becoming a figurine company. And after the Universal Exhibition in Seville, which is in Spain, in 1992, they ran the business Game Zone Eccentric Bookstore in the center of Seville for 9 years. They sold all kinds of material, hobby universe, comics, fantasy, literature, board games, war games, merchandising, various accessories and so on, but especially miniatures, which is basically what they specialize in. Then in the year 2000, they started a parallel company to manufacture their own miniatures, and in 2002 reconverted Game Zone into a unique company entirely dedicated to the manufacturing of miniatures. Game Zone covers the entire miniature manufacturing process, from design, modeling, 3D model making, mold making, own production of metal and resin miniatures, packaging, marketing and distribution, and do online sales. And if you're looking at the video, hopefully the screen recording is working and you can see some of the ones that they've got pictured there. And then the appearance of our first board game, Tseuquest, is the beginning of another line of creation. So that all started, when you look at that, so they started as a dedicated miniatures company in 2002. Now, in December, the 24th of December 2013, from what I can tell, a Kickstarter campaign kicked off, and by the end of that campaign, it originally started off as the 25th anniversary edition of HeroQuest, because you remember, for a long time, since the 90s, there's been nothing. The old board games were going for hundreds and hundreds of dollars on YouTube, not on YouTube, on eBay.
Next year will mark the 25th anniversary of the debut launch of the legendary adventure board game HeroQuest, a fact that has never been lost on its legion of fans. Fans like Kevin Gordish, who headed up a petition on change.org to recover HeroQuest and get a new, special anniversary edition back on the shelves. Gordish had an inspiring idea Now we will set out to make it a reality. Game Zone is a company with 12 years of experience in the world of miniature creation and design. We have brought together a team of artists, designers, and hardcore gamers to fulfill this dream, to create the 25th anniversary edition that HeroQuest deserves. We strive to astonish both those who grew up with this classic and the newer generations who have not been fortunate enough to enjoy it. We have worked hard for many months and still have a long way to go. That is why we need your help. Help to complete the high-quality miniatures, the 3D scenery with interchangeable elements, the design of the new double-sided board, to complete rules manuals, tokens, cards, and illustrations within the game. Help testing and debugging the rules and putting it all together in a spectacular box that can be remembered for another 25 years. We know how to do this. We have the right tools. We just need your contribution. We count on your swords to prevail, and adventure awaits.
So anyway, this is really well received when it first kicked off, and now I didn't know about this at all. I was completely oblivious to this. If I had known, I would have jumped on this immediately. So anyway, the Kickstarter went off, and by the end of it, it was well and truly funded throughout. It ended up receiving 1,172% funded. So, and it shows there 12,052 backers, but that is the total of everything. If you actually look at the games that were sold, you can see that the level 1, there's 208 people backed it. The level 2, there was 46, so only about 50, and level 3, 4,908 people backed the level 3 game. So that's a lot of people. I'm just going to check that in Spanish just to make sure that those numbers are the same. Yeah, they're the same. So that's how many people backed the game. So we're talking over 5,000 backers, 4,908, which are level 3. So people are really winning for the whole hog. And you can see the amount that was raised there. It's nearly 680,000 euros. So, a fairly substantial amount of money. Now, of those games, and I can't find out where I found this information, but I'm pretty sure it was in their updates that they did there, that about 600 of the backers were English versions of the game, because it was released in 5 languages. It's been released in Spanish, which, as I said, is the majority of the backers, for over 4,900. And then English, German, Italian, and also in French. So now there was a number of updates that were done, and then around about, as you can see here, in 21st of November 2014, it finished, and the updates transferred onto a different site. Now, there was not a lot of news from about 2015 all the way through to 2017. Almost nothing. And then in 2017, some YouTube videos started to pop up, and you're able to see some of the miniatures that were now being produced for the game. And then, I'm just going to have a little sip of my tea. Then, once again, this is all before my knowledge of the game. There was a French guy called Richard, who you can see his YouTube channel here. It's Les Sauternes Oblies, but I will be saying that absolutely wrong. But anyway, you can have a look at it. And there's a couple of videos there. And he actually went to Game Zone Miniature and interviewed the owner, Dionisio, who owns the company. And he interviewed him and talked to him about the game. And then another video, this one here, was him touring the actual site, the actual factory, and you can see all the miniatures. So as I'm talking, I'm going to be having this playing hopefully in the background, so you can see that. But anyway, a little bit about the 2018 interview that Richard did with Dionisio. What happened was Dionisio found that the undertaking was huge, and found that he couldn't deliver on what he had originally promised, as in being able to get the game out. And after the first year, so from 2014, basically when the campaign ended, to 2015, he just found they were rushing to get the game out, and when you rush things aren't done as well as you want. And what he wanted to do was produce a quality game. So he knew that he needed to review all aspects of the game, and that basically started in around 2015. This is according to the interview, if you want to have a look. Then in 2017, really they started that better communication, but they didn't want to show anything that wasn't complete. So they didn't put a lot of information out there. They wanted to do it only when the information was really relevant, when you could actually count on the news being accurate. Now, the original plan was for a separate company to do the packing, distribution, and delivery of the game. And then so we know that's not happening now. We know that's all happening in-house. But at the time, that was the plan. The plan was for basically Game Zone were going to make the game, and then another company was going to take care of all the packing, everything, the packing of the game and the distribution and delivery to everyone. Now in 2018, they moved to larger premises, which are the premises that you see in this video. But even then, the place is just packed to the gills with product, which you can see. And all the money that was invested in that campaign funding was invested into the game at this point. So one of the things they talk about is one of the problems that they had. And they talk about dice. 130,000 game dice all needed to be reprinted. So, but the components were basically all done by the time the video happened with Richard and Dionisio. Now, he also talked about what's missing. So at that time, remember we're going back to 2018, what was missing? Well, what was missing was the foreign editions, because the translation was being done at the time. This is in English, French, Italian, and German. The Spanish version obviously was pretty much, no translations needed. So that was still being done. But he was fairly confident that the translation was close to being finalized at that time. And he said that in May of 2018, he was expecting, so this video was done in February, and in May of 2018, he was expecting delivery of 130,000 dice reprinted because the mistake was by the printing people responsible that had created the dice. He also said there's no the boxes. They had to do the boxes because there was no boxes, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. So there were some things, there's still components that needed to be done. And he said that what he wanted was 16,000 boxes for the crowdfunding and another 10,000 for the online shop. One of the other things I found really interesting, this is a bit of a side point, they actually talk about the future of 25th anniversary of HeroQuest, as it was called at the time. And one of the things he was talking about was a light introduction version of the game, because the one that we all get, this is not a light introduction to the game. It's pretty complex, and there's you have to do some miniature creating to get everything together. But he was talking about a light version of the game that was going to have cardboard characters and so on, as you see in a lot of games these days. And it's interesting. It's not lost on me how closely it sounds to Hasbro's HeroQuest First Light, but I'm just saying that's just a reflection. Anyway, so this all happened in 2018, and then if we move along the timeline a little bit, so now we get to November 15th, 2021, and by this stage there hasn't been a lot of recent news. And then Hasbro, almost out of the blue, announces that they're going to actually, I guess, revisit HeroQuest and release HeroQuest all over again in a modern format, which they did. And the Mythic tier was a crowdfunding for the Mythic tier version of HeroQuest, which I also missed, by the way. Anyway, that was a bit of a Johnny-come-lately to all this.
Heed well my words, for I am Mentor, guardian of Lortome. I come with great warnings. For decades, the shadows were gone. But just as darkness follows light, shadows have a way of returning. Many centuries ago, Zargon was my apprentice. He worked hard and learned quickly, but impatience devoured him. He desired to learn the ancient and dangerous secrets of dread magic. Once he learned these secrets, he fled. When I found him, he was greatly changed. He pledged his allegiance to the dread forces of evil, using magic as a shortcut to unlimited power. After a lengthy battle, he retreated to the northern Dread Wastes. There, he strengthened his forces, and once again prepares for war. Zargon has returned, but light always follows darkness, and the four of you hold the key to saving the realm. The barbarian, the mightiest of warriors. The wizard, the wielder of arcane power. The dwarf, resilient fighter and expert craftsman. The elf, master of both the sword and magic. Your quest is to put an end to Zargon's reign of evil once and for all. The quest is calling. HeroQuest. The quest is calling.
So in 2021, Hasbro releases a statement because there's an issue around the ownership of the trademark HeroQuest. So, and it was really about Hasbro preparing to launch HeroQuest in Europe. So as you can see here, there's the statement there, and Ludophilia formally relinquish ownership of European HeroQuest trademark, and its board game project will be rebranded, although the context will remain unchanged. Ludophilia will now offer fans who previously backed Ludophilia's standalone crowdfunding campaign the option of receiving either the English version of Hasbro's game or the rebranded Ludophilia game, which is Tseuquest, because they had to change the trademark on that. So then in May 2021, GameZone provided a dedicated news and info site, which is called Tseuquest.com. Now, it provides news in all the 5 languages. So you can see there Spanish, English, French, German, and Italian. And it's been providing the news since May 20th, 2021, right up until now. But mostly the news that's been released has been in Spanish. So if we have a look in English, and we have a look at the news, we can see the last English news was actually in November 2021 of last year. Sorry, the 21st of November 2024. Whereas if we were to look at the French and then we see the news, we can see the last one's really recent. It's just now. It's in 12th of February of this year. So, but I digress, because so if we think about it, so the news site just began in 20th of May 2021. Now, in the 20th of May, we'll have a look at the second update that was put out. That was in the 7th of July 2022. We actually get to have a look at the box itself. And so finally, you know, from the video that Richard did with Donicio back in 2018, finally we can see that here's the boxes actually printed with the Tseuquest label rather than that HeroQuest label on it. I understand there were some issues with the original lot of boxes, but finally they were printed, and the HeroQuest boxes were done. Now, where I sort of come in is I went to Game Zone Miniatures, and after quite a while of deliberating on whether I should buy it or not, because I really wasn't sure, because there was a lot of bad press out there, I finally ordered what was called a pre-order edition of the game. Mine was a little bit cheaper than it is now, but I ordered the English version of the game, and my order's still in place for that. So that's it there. Basically all the items that you can see there. So that's what I ordered. I ordered that in, as I said, in September 2022. Now, I asked a lot of questions because I really, to be honest, wasn't super confident. And I wanted to know about updates. When was the game coming out? What's the progress and all that sort of thing. And I ended up, there was a Facebook page at the time about Tseuquest, and someone that seemed to know a lot about it was Richard, and it turned out that it was the same Richard who's in the video that had gone and interviewed Donicio back in 2018. And I've come to get to know him quite well. So anyway, he eventually asked, would I be willing to assist in the English translation of the game? Not the actual translation from Spanish to English, but just the proofreading of it, because English is my language. So I started doing that in September of 2023, and I'm still helping out now. So, there's been PDFs, hard copies, online Google Drive, countless copies I've printed off on the printer, and I've collaborated, and I've gone back and collaborated with the Google Drive when I was going through that. That was on the actual adventures side of the game. So the rulebook's taken a fair bit of time. Now, the other thing that happened was I was sent a hard copy of the game and received that. I can't remember exactly the date. It's on one of my other videos, but it was sent in July 2024. I think I got it sometime in August. You can see one of the original videos there. And so I went, all the components in there, I had to go through them and proofread them and find the mistakes, and then, record what had happened, what was going on, and send all that information back to the company, which I did. And then if we go a little bit further and we get to the 5th of April 2024, we go back to the news site here, and all's well that ends well, and it talks about that the Spanish version of the game is now being delivered, and actually says there, Tseuquest will be available for sale in Spanish stores and our online store starting Friday 3rd of May 2024. And before that, in the coming days, we'll begin to send games to the Spanish backers and pre-order customers. So there we go. So that's when that all started. And then if we have a look at the next update, if we have a look at this one here for the 26th of April, don't crowd me please, go to the back where there's room. So in this update it talks about the release of the game, and you can see information there on also how to ensure that your order is going to the right address and so on. It talks about how the game's going out province by province. And to allay some of the people like, well, when am I going to get mine? You know, what's going on? It does say specifically, remember you have to assume that you're in a queue. You will not be left without your game. All of the backers of Tseuquest games are physically in our facilities. All of them, including the extras that were unlocked during the campaign and some extra material that we've added for you. So, what are they saying? Don't worry, you'll get your game. It is physically here in the warehouse. And people were able to go down and get the game then, and it also talks about that as well. But basically it was trying to say, please don't just rush us en masse. You can come and collect your game, as you can see, but they preferred people to, you know, let them know when they were going to do that, so that the game could be prepared, rather than people just rocking up and you know, there was add-ins that had to go into the game, because when people order the game, they didn't just order the level 1, 2 or 3. They generally ordered that plus all these extra bits and pieces as well. So that's quite important to remember. And then a little bit further from there, then we come to the 25th of July 24. And another important one, shipping and more shipping. And this one here really starts to tell us about how much of the game's been going out. So remember, started going out 5th of May or slightly before that for some of the backers. And you can see there's pictures of it being shipped out. But as it says there, if you remember originally they were talking about the number of units. It talks about the number of units manufactured being 16,000 Tseuquest units between levels 1, 2 and 3. 16,000. And that approximately 5,500 patrons that were in the Tseuquest funding campaign, which, if you remember, was what I mentioned earlier at the start. That they talked about how many had gone out, and they're talking about the shipments there, and it said, we have already served around 20% of our Spanish patrons. So that's between when it started in May and then towards the end of July. So there's already been some movement at the station there. And then the next most significant update was this one here in the 24th of October, even more shipments. So if you look at this update, so 24th of October, even more shipments, talks a little bit more about, you know, the delivery process and so on. But then if you scrolled right down to the bottom, we had, and I did an update on this when it happened, we can see that there's PDF of the rulebook in English, in Spanish, and in German. So you can simply click on it, and there's your rulebook, which was great. And you can print it off. Now, I've done that, that's it there. And this is what I've done most recently, is I went through the rulebook one more time, and just to see. And sure enough, I made a few notations here and there. And just a few things that I noted that I thought needed to be fed back. Actually, there were all of these suggestions that I made, because when I first went through it, there was heaps of things that I would like to have seen changed. A lot of Spanish that had crept in, and typos, and all sorts of things. So anyway, that's all been done. But I have forwarded back that there are a couple more things that still need to be tidied up before this is finally printed for release, because I don't know if you remember, but when I went through my box, there's no rule book and no adventure booklet in there. So they're going to do this. And you can see also there, look at that. How cool is that? Proofreader extraordinaire, Troy Simmons. Extraordinaire or not, but I did proofread the game. So there we go. And hopefully when it does come out there, it's going to come out and it's going to be pretty smack on. So one of the things I really want to tidy it up, actually, when you do have a look at that PDF and print it off, you'll note that the first paragraph is a bit dodge, and I have suggested a complete rewording of that first paragraph because it's just a long spiel of a sentence. So that's all happened. Now, you may have heard about a trial that took place, which was on the 6th of February this year, 2025. So there was an association of just under 600 members. They took Dionisio and GameZone to court, and they claimed the whole thing was a scam, no one was getting the game, and Dionisio was a fraudster. Now, this is exactly what has been discussed in the most recent update. So let's have a look at that. You can see it there, dated 12th of February, 2025. The wheel turns, the deliveries continue. So I'm going to read this verbatim. So this is the update. It's time for a new Tseuquest update so we can inform patrons about the status of the project. First of all, I want to stress that no one should be alarmed because they have read that we will not have their game. Nothing could be further from the truth. I repeat again. I repeat once again, something that is documented evidence. All patron games are manufactured. This has allowed us to consistently deliver games for months and continue to do so currently. So we will continue to deliver games to all patrons, yes, all of them, whether they are members of the association, that's the ones that took them to court, or not, as we were already doing. Obviously, there was a queue of work in which some of you are still, obviously there's a queue of work in which some of you are still. As we have said many times, do not be impatient, it is only a matter of time. Joint deliveries by province are working very well, and more than half of the provinces have already been attended to in the first call. We have just surpassed 2,000 units of patron games delivered, not counting those already prepared for the association, of which more than 200 have been in person at the GameZone workshop. You can see those there. So, in other words, about 200 members of the association actually turned up to the workshop to get their games. If we take that 2,000 games delivered, that's about 40% of the Spanish games already delivered. That's significant. So from May 2024 until now, 40% of the games, because we're not talking about a massive, huge company. We're talking about in comparison to Hasbro. And also, we know that they're the ones now packaging the games and they're the ones now doing the distribution rather than it being a separate entity. And it says there, as an example, a button, and it shows you the games there. 13 pallets for the association, and then the rest of those for elsewhere. As we have already written in previous updates, it is not necessary for you to offer to pick up the game. As we have already written in previous updates, it is not necessary for you to offer to pick up at the GameZone workshop in Seville. But if you want to do so, you must notify us in advance so that we can establish a date and time for collection. We have to prepare the orders within our workflow. Those who already had scheduled visits to GameZone workshop to pick up their games will be able to do so as planned. But please do not show up at the workshop without having scheduled a visit to pick up your game, because you simply will be given an appointment for another day. GameZone's main location is the same one that many patrons have been visiting for months to pick up their games. We've been in the same place for years, which is interesting because, and you can click the little link there, which takes you to here, and you can see GameZone there. You can click on it, and you can, this is the warehouse, you can see it, and you can have a look at the various pictures and so on there of the game. So yeah, that's quite interesting. There we go. So because there has definitely been people suggesting that they've moved and so on, but that's not the truth. Quite a nice area by the looks of it. Anyway, going back to that news, what we have done is something that was already planned some time ago, which is to optimize space, leaving one of the premises that served as a warehouse as soon as possible. So in other words, they want to get the games out and empty one of those warehouses as soon as possible. The consequence of delivering many games has been able to reduce storage costs. So getting rid of the games is costing them less. On the other hand, the elephant in the room, the judicial matter. Finally, last week, everything ended with the best possible result for the project, acquittal due to the absence of evidence of fraud. That is, the verdict in court. I think that this matter is better left for another possible update. So they may talk about that later. But basically, acquittal due to the absence of evidence of fraud, which is obvious because there has been the work being done. You can see that all the materials there, as you can see in the video, and also 40% of the games have already gone out. We have been delivering games for months. Now we're continuing to deliver games, so let's keep working. And that's the end of the post. So, look, I hope that's given people a little bit of, a breath of relief. It does for me. I mean, I know I'm involved in as far as like reading bits of paper and getting back to Game Zone. Something, by the way, it's something I've been asked what I do. I haven't been paid in any way. I mean, you could say, oh, you've been paid, you've got a box of Tseuquest and nobody else has got that, but literally it's a box and it's a prototype with no rule book and no games book. But my game is still at the warehouse, like everyone else's. So I hope it comes out, because when it comes out, it'll be perfect. The cards and everything else that's a bit mucked up in this one will be corrected and perfect for playing when it finally arrives. And it sounds like that the Spanish rollout is well and truly, into, it's not in its final stages, but they've made massive progress. And I think probably now that this distraction is past Game Zone, perhaps we can see, even more progress as the months continue. I do know there's a lot of people involved, family involved in getting this games out. Junichio's own family. There's obviously people that you would have seen, names that are on the back of that PDF for the rulebook, people that are the translators, the artists, and so on. And then there's people like Richard and myself who just want to see the game done and assisting for free. And there's other people too. So, collectively, I'm really hopeful for this to come out, and that, we'll look back on this at some stage and go, yeah, gee, that was a journey and that took a while. But I hope that timeline has helped a bit. So from that original 2013 Richard's video in 2018, the delivery of dice in the same year, the boxes in, 2021, and on it goes up until last year when the first lot of games rolled out the door, and this year we're in February and 40% of the games have already gone out, which is great. So that's really good news. Anyway, there's some top news to be coming out soon. There's going to be some cool news about the website. There's some spoilers, I know, but I don't want to give them to you, because when they do come out, they're going to be pretty cool. But it might be a little while until the new website's done. But when it does, what's going to be available to purchase from the store is going to be exceptionally cool. Anyway, until then, I wish everybody well. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, until then, I wish everybody well, and hopefully you will get your game sooner rather than later. Adios.